A few weeks later, I faced another challenge that tested my discipline. I had an important project to complete, but I also had many other things to do. At first, I felt confused because everything seemed equally important. I wanted to finish everything quickly, but I knew that would only create more stress. I remembered what Arjun had taught me about priorities. So I made a simple list and arranged my tasks according to their importance. I started with the task that required the most attention. Instead of checking my phone, I kept my focus on the work in front of me. Whenever I felt distracted, I reminded myself of my goal. Slowly, I completed one task and then moved to the next. By the end of the day, I had finished much more than I expected. I realized that discipline could help me stay calm even when life became busy. When I told Arjun about my experience, he looked genuinely happy for me. He said, "Now you are using discipline instead of simply talking about it." I smiled and told him that I still had difficult days sometimes. He replied, "You will always have difficult days, and that is completely normal." He explained that discipline was not meant to remove every problem from life. It was meant to help us respond to problems in a better way. His words made me realize how much my thinking had changed. I no longer saw challenges as reasons to quit. Instead, I started seeing them as opportunities to practice what I had learned. I thanked Arjun for helping me understand the value of small daily actions. He smiled and said, "Keep going, because consistency is what creates lasting change." As I walked home that evening, I felt proud of how far I had come. As the weeks passed, discipline became a normal part of my everyday life. I no longer had to force myself to follow my routine every morning. Most of my important habits had slowly become automatic. I still had days when I felt tired or distracted. But I had learned how to return to my routine without making excuses. I also became more careful about how I used my free time. Instead of spending hours doing nothing, I tried to do something useful. Sometimes I read a book, practiced English, or planned my next day. These small activities made me feel more productive and confident. I realized that discipline was giving me control over my choices. I was becoming more responsible without even noticing the change. For the first time, I felt that I was truly becoming the person I wanted to be. One morning, I looked at my old notebook where I had written my first routine. I compared it with the routine I was following now. The difference surprised me because I had changed more than I expected. I remembered how difficult it had been to get out of bed on that first morning. Back then, even a small decision had felt like a big challenge. Now, I understood that change had happened because I kept repeating small actions. I realized that progress was not always easy to notice while it was happening. Sometimes we only see our growth when we look back at where we started. I felt proud, but I also knew that my journey was not finished. There would always be new goals, new challenges, and new things to learn. I closed the notebook and decided to keep moving forward. I understood that discipline was not a destination, but a lifelong habit. That evening, I met Arjun one more time and told him what I had realized. He listened quietly and smiled as I explained how much my life had changed. I said, I used to think discipline meant forcing myself to work all the time. Arjun shook his head and said, "Now you understand it differently." He explained that true discipline was about making choices that supported our goals. I told him that I had learned to focus on progress instead of perfection. He said, that lesson will help you far beyond this routine. His words made me think about my future and the goals I wanted to achieve. I realized that every future goal would require patience and consistent effort. I no longer felt afraid of difficult goals because I knew how to begin. I could start with one small action and continue from there. That simple understanding gave me a strong sense of confidence. Before we said goodbye, I thanked Arjun for all the advice he had given me. I told him that one small decision had completely changed the way I looked at discipline. Arjun smiled and said, remember, your habits are shaping the person you are becoming. I nodded and promised myself that I would keep practicing what I had learned. As I walked home, I thought about my journey from that first difficult morning. I remembered the distractions, the tired days, and the moments when I wanted to give up. But I also remembered every time I chose to continue. I understood that those small choices had created the biggest change in my life. I looked ahead and felt ready for whatever challenges came next. I knew that I would not always be perfect, but I could always keep improving. And finally, I understood the real meaning of discipline. Discipline was not about changing my life in one day, it was about changing my choices every day.